Hi, I'm Erin, and you're watching the conversation about The Shepherd and the Sound by Presence Creative Arts, featuring Jason Hildebrand. The Shepherd and the Sound is a contemplative film, a slow, cinematic experience imagined from the life of David from the Bible. This is a spiritual story, the journey of one man and how he has heard the voice of the eternal, the sound, throughout his life. In each episode recorded throughout the film's release, we discuss how David's ancient story provides healing and comfort for the anxious and disconnected culture of today. Before we join the Presence Creative Arts crew, let's do one thing together. Let's take a breath in, hold, and breathe out. Are you ready? Let's breathe in, hold it, and breathe out slowly. We are so glad that you're here today. There is something for you here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that was the key to unlocking thing, the whole story. The other thing is we were in Scotland. So we haven't, why I think it ended up being a really important part of the story. And, I couldn't imagine the film without that. But how did we end up in Scotland?
Well, we have this very funny. So you and I went and location scouted, and I flew to Inverness, and then drove to so Inverness is 3.5 hours to the castle up north. Met Murray Watts, who's our friend who owns the castle and is this incredible playwright. Then you said, well, I'll fly to Glasgow. So I said, no problem. I'll drive 6 hours through Scotland to get to you and pick you up, which I don't know why in my head I thought this would be easy, driving through all the locks. It was not easy, but I didn't die. 6-speed stick shift on the other side of the road. Anyway, we went and picked you up, and then I got invited we have this incredible intercessory prayer board that is part of Presence. And a couple of the people from that board are involved in a group that prays for Europe. And I had been feeling like Scotland, I don't know, for like 6 or 7 years. And I couldn't articulate why, because I have no connection to Scotland. Other than one of my spiritual mentors has her roots are Scotland, and she's got a great love for Scotland, and she would always talk about Scotland. So while we were in a hotel room in Glasgow, just on the tail end of the pandemic, you and I are there. I got invited to a Zoom call with this prayer group from Europe, and so my friend, who's part of that group, one of our intercessory prayer people, said, "Hey, Jason, jump on the call. Tell everybody what you're doing." And I said, "Well, I think I'm making a movie on David, and I think it's going to be a guy wandering around. But I was unsure whether that's what we should be doing. But I was reminded that there were great films with one guy wandering around, like a Castaway and Moon, and a handful of other films that are quite incredible." And I said, but we'll probably postpone it. And, we don't have any money and and they're like, and the whole Zoom room full of people said, "Oh no, you need to shoot next summer." And I thought, well, what are you talking about? And they said, we are on the cusp of the 100th anniversary of a number of revivals that came out of Northern Scotland that changed the world. And God wants to pour out his spirit through Scotland to the nations, and you need to be part of it. And I went, okay, that sounds cool. I don't know what that means, but cool. And then I was like, well, do any of you have any money? Because, but it was like you and I hadn't even gone to Northern Scotland or had any of the, we hadn't even seen the landscape yet. And we felt like it was like a green light already. And I think that was just kind of we had these catalytic moments all the way through the filming, the kind of keep going moments. And that was like the first keep going moment where we went, okay, there's something going on here that we need to kind of be open to. And then we drove up north and, encountered the landscape, encountered the feeling of, I remember both of us saying, this is crazy how how small we feel here, like how, this landscape has been here for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and there's erosion and there's like abandoned stone buildings, and the people are so kind of grafted into the rock almost, and there's just something that's both magical and mysterious and hard about the landscape, and it's kind of felt absolutely like the right place we should be.
I agree. I hadn't thought of it till right now, because you kind of brought two sort of things together that I think are remarkable about the film. One is the Scotland piece of it, but the second piece is, okay, so we go visit Scotland once, and we knew it was exciting. Like for me, it felt like it embodied that kind of man versus nature thing that was clearly part of this, and man versus kind of himself, which we knew would be the story. I mean, it just seems like Scotland to me is, and part of that is probably because if you come from the new world, there's sort of a fascination with older things that people have made, especially within the sort of Western tradition.
Right.
It's like we know what that story is, and all this has sort of come to be. But it also felt like, I think how we felt, that we're so tiny in that landscape, and it's like we're constantly, the ground is literally constantly being eroded, and things are falling down, and yet people just keep going. They keep struggling. So we had that piece, we liked it, but I still felt like a big barrier to this is that traveling the crew to Scotland, I mean, this is a big experience. And I remember you calling, I was out biking specifically, and I remember you calling and saying, "Hey, I'm booking the tickets to Scotland." I said, "You're booking the tickets?" Like, I was like, "Great, I'm in." But we didn't have a script. We definitely didn't have the financing to do the whole film. We didn't have any of these things.
No.
So I think it put a different, I think it's really important for people who are maybe filmmakers or storytellers. Sometimes you have to make decisions that don't make total business sense.
Oh yeah.
In this kind of a story, because I mean, they're just the leap. I mean, you're literally saying, okay, now we're going to be in Scotland, so now we're going to need a script, and we're going to need some ideas, and this is going to have to happen. So I think that, I remember feeling that. I remember right where I was feeling like, now the pressure.
Now we got to actually do this thing.
Yeah, now it's really on. So, that, I don't know. I'm not even sure where that fits in, but I think it's just important to talk about that. I don't feel that way with most projects. I feel like, look, if you don't know where it's going, who the viewership is, what this thing is, who's financing it, I don't tend to want to pursue that, because that can be, a pretty sort of self-serving idea. I'm just going to make my own stuff, and you should like it and stuff like that,
Yeah.
But, I felt like we had things there that mattered.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this leads me into this kind of a next question. As I was thinking about when we were making the film, I don't know if we knew, but I think it's evolved, is who is this film for?
Yeah. Well, that's, like you say, that's evolved. I mean, that was the question from the beginning that we were trying to figure out. Who is this film for? And, I think initially what we were trying to do is to use an ancient story to ask the big questions of life, and speak into, like we've been discussing, a cultural moment where people are lost, people are like not grounded, and we wanted to use this very flawed man and the hope that we see coming out of that to bring some grounding to a culture that's kind of a little unhinged. And so I think that there's a real sense in which we thought it was something for not just for a religious audience, but for I don't think it's a young people's, it's not for teenagers. It's not necessarily that, but I think I think part of it is that we were trying to find a story that captivated our attention and gave us some hope. And we were using this vehicle of this guy, this flawed guy, and like really a character that's inspired all the Shakespearean things, all like Tolkien things, like Lewis. There's so much of the David story that we find in so much literature. So this story is this incredible human story. And I think we use language in such a way that we would not, I think part of that, like we discussed earlier, the religious language has been such a problem in our culture, and we were trying to reframe the religious language through the sound. But what we got to, I think we did it. I think we did do that. But what we also got to was that there is, because we've created space, there is this sense in which we've actually also created this, I don't know, I don't want to say it in an arrogant way, but it's like we've created something that's also sacred. It's like we can, when you watch this film, those of us who have a deeper faith context or a relationship with the divine can find an even greater expression of that in the telling of this story. And that was a little bit of a surprise to me when we set out to do the one thing, and then we realized, oh, wait a minute, this is a deep dive for those who want to dive deep. And that's been really fun to watch people encounter that. And it's why we ended up building a gallery encounter, like an immersive gallery encounter, out of the film later. Because we're thinking, oh, if that's what the film is doing, what if we created even more space for people to slow it down, to engage, to ask big questions, to get under the surface? Because our digital world is just a world of distraction and disconnection.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I was thinking about that question because obviously it evolved, and I was thinking of the Jordan Peterson book, We Who Wrestle with God, and thinking that I just looked that up, and it refers to the biblical story of Jacob, which is when his name was changed to Israel, which means one who struggles with God, and thinking about that's essentially that had aligned with what I'd been thinking, which is there seems to be anything resembling a understanding or awareness of the spiritual being important to people. Yeah. And I had been feeling like this is very important to people. I mean, there's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot of things that cause us to question, where our values come from, what we stand for, what matters to us. Right. And these ultimately become spiritual questions, or at least they become questions that say, why do I believe what I believe? Yep. So for me, that was, that's been, a top level question that I think needs to be discussed. Yeah. So one of the things that I love about this story actually is that it's not a Christian story, because it simply happens before Christianity. So it's just not in there. Yes, it's in the tradition of that, absolutely. Sure. But there's no way of saying that. And one of the questions we were going to discuss was Christian filmmaking, and I think sometimes we take out the mystery of who we are as humans, the spiritual mystery of our existence, of our meaning, of our purpose with Christianity, because we get sort of bogged down in, is this true? And what did he mean when he said this? And, how do we need to interpret this in our daily life? And these are all important questions. Yeah. But these are not the core questions. Mm-hmm. The core questions to me is that we are made to long for these spiritual things. We're made to long for more in life than what gets delivered. Mm-hmm. And I think that's ultimately what makes things meaningless, right? Is you expecting meaning that you are not getting. Right. If you expected it to be meaningless, it wouldn't concern you at all. Right. But it's when you want meaning and you have that. So to me, that's what this film came to embody that makes me so happy about it and so excited about it, is that
real connection with the eternal inspires intentional creative expression that fills all voids, that repairs every trauma, and remembers true identity. When we create and when we consume, we can actually be restored. Don't go another year without making space for this. The Shepherd and the Sound film, immersive gallery encounter, community encounter. Bring transformative experiences to your community. Contact info@presencecreativearts.com. We look forward to connecting with you. We have made space for you.
To me, that's what this film came to embody that makes me so happy about it and so excited about it, is that anyone who feels as though there's a need to answer some questions they don't have the answer to, that maybe there's a spiritual component that is essential to who we are and how we think about our time and in this world, so it's for those people. So I really like that, because I was thinking about, you've Christians and you have art, and you have saying Christian art, and you have that, and this gets messy and frankly boring.
Yeah.
And, it's just not interesting at all.
Yeah.
But, and when I look at Presence, your company now, and stuff that has mattered to me very much is when a story can have a greater impact than sort of the sum of its parts. And that's what it feels like now. So the David for now, the story we ended up telling for now, which is again coming around to embodying you, which is you in this world right now, can be asking all those questions. And I love that. I love how that evolved.
Yeah. Wow. That's good, Ted.
Well, so you mentioned the slow film.
Yeah.
If we move on that slow cinema. Now, this is not something I've particularly studied or have a deep interest in, but I think you mentioned it at the beginning of talking. Is we started out with this the David theatrical show is not slow. In fact,
it's a rocket ride.
It's fast.
Yeah.
So it's all this thing. So, we put the script together. We basically keep as many scenes as we can from the show.
Yeah, there's a handful.
We try to keep, there's a handful of scenes we try to keep
as the narrative through line.
As the narrative, and we're trying to then figure out how to bridge some of those scenes and how to do some of what we need to do there. We go and do the first shoot. We come back, and a lot of it we really like.
Yeah. But
there's clearly some problems. Clearly
there was some problems.
I would say, and when I thought about the slow cinema thing, is I thought two things were problems. One, we were saying a bit too much.
Yeah.
We were a little too much exposition, which we thought we needed because, you're trying to make sense of this story.
Sure.
So it wasn't. And the second piece was no time to breathe. No time to experience.
Yeah.
What the character was being. So I think that sort of leads us to the evolution of the story, to me, which is how did we add the space? So what's your memory of that, or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, well, a couple things, and I think from the beginning, a real huge influence on me was Terrence Malick, and I think a number of years before, I love his films in general because he has this way of telling a story cinematically that not a lot of filmmakers. A lot of people don't like it because it doesn't all make sense and whatever. But it all gels for me, Terrence Malick, and he did this film called A Hidden Life, which was takes place just before the German occupation of things, and takes place in Austria in the Austrian Alps, and it was. I think it's his opus, and it was such a beautiful film, and I remember going into the cinema, sitting down, and being like 20 minutes in and realizing the pace is so slow. Like I was like, I have to take off my jacket. Like I took off my jacket. I got comfortable in my chair. I go I got to buckle up because this is going to be a long film. And I loved it. It pulled me, and you're coming in. I remember I was late to the movie. I was trying to text a bunch of things, getting things done. And I was and I sat down and I realized how slow it was going to be. And so I shut off my phone. I got comfortable and I just went, okay, I'm in, I'm going to be in. And when we got to Scotland, all I could think of was this is so Malick. The cinematography that we can go after here is so incredible. And so we went and, we found, even in the storytelling in the first shoot, we found some just glorious spots to shoot. But like you said, we came back and there was more narrative and not enough of the thing that we had been talking about, which is this kind of Malick-like storytelling, this kind of cinematic, using the landscape in a really helpful way. So you and I went back the second time. And we went back to Location Scout to pick up a few things, and we shoot B-roll. And I think that was where, for you and I'll just speak for myself, that where it started to solidify, like, we need to figure out how actually the through line is not necessarily the through line of David. The through line is the narrative of nature that tells the story of David, almost like a parallel journey to the story of David. And we found some stuff like just, some of my favorite images in the whole film. Well, the ending of the film is also, I honestly think we had angels flying around setting things up for us or something, because there's so many moments that we did not plan that were just unbelievable moments.
Yeah, I think about that. I mean, so we went back for that second visit. Most of what we shot was you walking around.
Yeah,
in
me
the
walking
wilderness,
around.
right? And so I remember thinking when we were shooting it, it's like there's no way, like, we need a few shots of this, and we shot like hours of it.
So
in
much.
the end, I think we used all of it.
Yeah.
Because it ended up being so essential to
Right.
what the story is. So I mean, for sure, that became, it was showing who the character was, not what the character said, not what the character did,
Right.
but who the character was. And
Right,
I think
right.
that's what we was tough, because I mean that's off script. I mean, those are not scenes you find
totally
in the story, right?
No.
These are things that it's starting to become more you as this character, and less something we can go to history or something to discover.
Yeah, and I think for me what that was that we ended up getting to is that both Jason, but I think David, there's something in my own life when my life is complicated or I don't know how to process, my default is walking. Like I live in the city, I walk the back alleys where nobody is, I walk the parks, I'll walk whatever. And I need to be doing something kinetic to process what's going on in my life. And I think what was incredible about it is this landscape of Scotland where he's literally seeing the erosion of time and space, and he's seeing the finiteness of his life, and he's just still in motion. He's just trying to process. He's just trying to process. And I think we discussed, we want to give the audience that time and space to process their own lives through the story as well. I don't think we got to that till later, but that's what ended up happening.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, through the process, I'd resisted or struggled with how David is interpreted as a character historically, because he's so revered, and then when you really break down what he did, I mean, a lot of it is miserable.
Yeah.
It's not obvious that this is a great execution of the opportunities you've been given and that kind of thing. But I think what I tell that story to say that as we continued in the latter part of this, I think David was clearly a character who was all in to what he was doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think
for good and for bad.
Right. And I think that part of it really started to let the film come to life, especially in the second half of the film, where it's less about the history and the other characters, and it's more about you stepping into that character of David.
Yeah.
And just thinking of moments that, what stands out to me most in that is you've got, David telling a story, and I don't want to give away sort of the whole film, but I mean, being confronted with his own horrible actions and sort of deciding to tell that story. Now, whether it's, he's talking to Nathan, whether he's imagining Nathan, whether the point is he's saying out loud something that, when we talked about it, we thought he's probably never said this. Mm-hmm. He's admitting a murder, basically. He's saying, I'm a murderer. And what does that represent? I mean, I think that represents in a way the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
What is the worst thing you can do? You can go and just take someone else's life who's innocent, and saying that out loud.
Right.
So I mean, it to me, that's where we really started. It starts to connect with the audience. By the time you're at that place there, you realize, man, what do I want to say out loud, or what do I want to confront, or do I need to be more honest about
Yeah.
what I'm saying or not saying. So I began to really love that about the character, is that whatever he's doing, he does it. You know, he doesn't have to do it. You know, and so
Yeah, he makes the choice.
Yeah. So I really, you know, coming out of that was really powerful to me, and you know, I hope it's comes across to people experiencing the film.
And I think the interesting thing coming out of that important moment is we set it up in such a way that he gets really vulnerable. He tells the truth. He confronts this massive disaster that he created. And then we let it hang. There's this long blackout where we just let it hang. Like, is it over? Like, is he getting smote from the sky? Is he gonna fall into the fire? Is he gonna, like, what's gonna happen? And then you see this almost like a breath of, I mean, the overused thing that we both talked about, not really wanting to use, but wanting to use near the end, is this, like, David's a man after God's own heart. Wow, it's all good. He's a man after God's own heart. But what you see is him making decisions, making the choice to confront his mess. And actually I think the reason it's said is that he actually does it. Like, he goes after it in the end. And he has this moment where he confesses his mess. He reconciles his mess. And then there's, like, his heart is towards being new and reconciled. And I think we see him come along and recognize that God has granted that to him. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why it's a powerful story in culture, is you can have the messiest, nastiest, horrible things that have been done, and yet still there's hope. And I think, you know, it's hard to find anybody messier and nastier than David in the scriptures by the end, even though he did these great heroic things in the beginning. But he comes out at the end, and there's this beautiful moment of, I'm going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I'm loved. And that's a powerful thing to recognize when our whole culture is now divided into, like, you're the evil one, no, you're the evil one, no, you're the evil one, to recognize, wait, this guy was the messy evil one, and yet he's loved and pardoned, and there's grace. These words that we don't like to use in culture very much.
I agree. Totally agree. And it's so I'm thinking now about how after that first filming, I actually sort of assembled this edit. Because it was sort of what the script was, and we realized, okay, we want to do some other things with this. We kind of knew, but we didn't know what. And we brought on another editor, or an actual editor, not me, to help. And Eamon but he said, you know, this feels like a sort of four-walled experience, you know. And we sort of talked about that. We're like, yeah.
Thanks for joining the conversation about the Shepherd and the Sound film, community encounter, and immersive gallery encounter. If this is resonating with you, like this video and subscribe to the Presence Creative Arts YouTube channel. Please leave us a comment. We want to know what spoke to you, where you'd like to see this project travel next, and what you'd like to hear our team discuss in the next episode. For more Presence Creative Arts content that will unlock, connect, and transform you, visit PresenceCreativeArts.com to see our library of productions and where we'll be performing next. This is real. The eternal is real. We sincerely thank you for being here, and we will see you next time.